Human height knows no easy limit, and some people stretch it to the extreme. We're not talking about your average tall guy or even pro athletes. These are people so big, so towering, they seem almost unreal.
Robert is 7 feet 10 inches tall.
Their lives were shaped, sometimes blessed, sometimes cursed.
And they just locked me up in the back in an appalling condition, and I got into an accident. I was burned.
By their unbelievable size. What causes it? Sometimes it's a tumor, sometimes it's a rare condition, but always it's unforgettable. This isn't just about records, it's about real lives behind the numbers. Some became celebrities, others disappeared into quiet corners of history. Get ready to meet the 16 tallest humans ever recorded, and we're starting with the tallest of them all. Robert Wadlow, 1918 to 1940. No one has ever stood taller than Robert Wadlow. Born in Alton, Illinois in 1918, he began life at a normal size, but by the age of 5, he was already taller than most teenagers. His condition wasn't inherited. It was caused by a rare pituitary gland disorder, which made his body produce too much growth hormone. Known as pituitary gigantism, it sent his height into overdrive. He never stopped growing.
I'm Robert Wadlow, 12 years old, and weigh 240 pounds, and I'm about 7 feet tall.
By the time he died at 22, Wadlow measured an astonishing 8 feet 11.1 inches, 2.72 meters, a record that still stands today. His hands were massive, 12.75 inches from wrist to fingertip. His feet were so large that they required custom shoes, size 37 AA. He was known as the Alton Giant, and despite his fame, he remained soft-spoken and gentle. But life at that size wasn't easy. He had to wear leg braces to walk, and it was a faulty brace that caused a blister, one that became infected. Because of his condition and medical treatments, his immune system was weak. He died from the resulting infection, weighing 439 pounds, 199 kilos at the time. Wadlow was admired not just for his height, but for how he carried himself, calm, respectful, and kind. People lined up just to shake his hand. Statues of him still stand today in his hometown. He lived a short life, but one that left a permanent mark on the world. No one has ever come close to his towering record. He remains the tallest human being in verified medical history. John Rogan, 1868 to 1905. Before Robert Wadlow, there was John Rogan, the first man in history to reach truly legendary height. Born in Sumner County, Tennessee in 1868, Rogan was of average size as a child. But around age 13, everything changed. His growth suddenly surged and never stopped. By adulthood, he measured an incredible 8 feet 9 inches, 2.67 meters, making him the tallest person of African descent ever recorded. But his story is far from just a record. Rogan suffered from a severe condition called ankylosis, where his joints fused and stiffened over time. By his 20s, he could no longer stand or walk. Despite this, he never gave in to despair. Instead, he taught himself to paint and draw, selling portraits and postcards from a cart he designed himself. Locals knew him not only for his size, but for his deep voice, wit, and warm personality. He never joined a circus or went on tour. He stayed close to home, living with quiet dignity. His body was extremely lean for his height, weighing only 175 pounds, 79 kilograms. Health problems followed him throughout his life. Knowing that the medical world would want to study his body, he made one final request: to be buried in concrete so his remains wouldn't be disturbed. His family honored that wish. John Rogan may not be as famous as Wadlow, but his life was remarkable, defined by the strength of character, creative spirit, and unshakable resilience against incredible physical odds. John F. Carroll, 1932 to 1969. John F. Carroll, known as the Buffalo Giant, was one of the most extreme cases of human growth ever documented. Born in Buffalo, New York in 1932, his incredible height came from a combination of acromegaly and gigantism, both caused by excessive growth hormone. But what made Carroll's case so difficult was his spine. He developed a severe spinal curvature called kyphoscoliosis, which made measuring him a challenge. When he was measured in 1959, his height was recorded at 8 feet, 2.44 meters. But due to his condition, doctors estimated that if he could have stood fully upright, he might have reached 8 feet 7.5 inches, 2.63 meters, possibly even more. His growth was rapid and at times frightening. In one period, he grew 7 inches in just a few months. As his body grew taller, his bones and spine couldn't keep up. The spinal deformity became worse over time, making movement difficult and painful. He couldn't walk without assistance, and his daily life was shaped by constant discomfort. Despite the pain, Carroll remained engaged with the world around him, frequently communicating with researchers and doctors who were fascinated by his condition. Like many giants, he struggled with the strain that gigantism puts on the heart, lungs, and bones. He died at age 37, a relatively short life, but one that contributed a great deal to medical understanding of extreme growth. John F. Carroll remains one of the tallest people in recorded history and one of the most medically complex. Väinö Milina, 1909 to 1963. Väinö Milina wasn't just a giant, he was a two-time giant. Born in Finland in 1909, he grew tall in his youth, reaching 7 feet 3.4 inches, 2.22 meters, by his early 20s. That alone would have made him stand out, but his story didn't stop there. In a rare twist, he experienced a second major growth spurt later in life, likely triggered by adult-onset acromegaly. By his late 30s, he had reached a final height of 8 feet 3 inches, 2.51 meters. Before his second growth phase, Milina served in the Finnish Defense Forces. At over 7 feet tall, he remains the tallest soldier ever recorded in history. His massive hands, measuring 11.5 inches, 29.2 centimeters, and commanding frame made him unforgettable among his fellow soldiers. After his service, he toured Europe as a professional wrestler and circus performer. Like many others with towering statures, the stage offered him both a source of income and recognition. However, he eventually stepped away from public life and returned to Finland, where he operated a chicken farm in the town of Järvenpää. What makes Milina stand out even more is how long he lived. Many individuals with gigantism don't survive past their 30s or 40s, but he lived to be 54, a rare feat for someone of his size and condition. Though less known than some American giants, Milina's story is one of resilience, adaptation, and a life that defied the limits imposed by his enormous frame. Sultan Kosen, 1982 to present. Sultan Kosen isn't just tall, he is officially the tallest living man on Earth. Born in 1982 in the city of Mardin, Turkey, Sultan's height is the result of a tumor pressing on his pituitary gland, which caused it to release abnormal levels of growth hormone. His growth began around age 10 and soon separated him from everyone around him. By adulthood, he reached a verified height of 8 feet 2.8 inches, 2.31 meters. Life wasn't easy. His size made normal schooling impossible. He worked briefly as a farmer, but his height made physical labor painful and difficult. Despite the challenges, Sultan remained humble and kind, becoming a national figure in Turkey and eventually a global one. His hands are also record-breaking, measuring 11.22 inches, 28.5 centimeters, from wrist to fingertip, the largest of any living person. He often uses crutches to support his mobility, as the strain on his joints is intense. In 2010, Sultan underwent gamma knife surgery at the University of Virginia to remove the tumor and stop further growth. With follow-up hormone treatments, doctors were able to halt his rapid development, something that giants never had the chance to benefit from. Today, Sultan travels the world as an ambassador of sorts, representing both Turkey and the global community of people with gigantism. He meets fans, attends events, and spreads awareness about his condition. Thanks to modern medicine, Sultan Kosen has not only survived, but thrived. He stands tall, both literally and symbolically, in the world's eyes. Edouard Bopre, 1881 to 1904. Edouard Bopre, known as the Willow Bunch Giant, was both incredibly tall and incredibly strong. Born in 1881 in a small French-Canadian settlement in Saskatchewan, Edouard started growing rapidly in his teens. By the time he was a young adult, he had already grown to over 7 feet tall and was still growing. Eventually, he reached a staggering height of 8 feet 2.5 inches, 2.50 meters, and weighed about 365 pounds, 165 kilograms, all muscle. But Bopre wasn't just a spectacle, he was a performer and a strongman. He joined the circus, traveling across North America, and performing incredible feats, like lifting full-grown horses onto his shoulders and bending iron bars with his bare hands. He became a featured attraction for Barnum and Bailey Circus, where crowds gathered in awe to witness his power. But behind the applause was a young man struggling with the effects of gigantism. His body was under immense stress, and in 1904, while performing at the St. Louis World's Fair, he suddenly collapsed. He died shortly afterward from a massive pulmonary hemorrhage at just 23 years old. Sadly, his body wasn't returned home right away. Instead, it was embalmed, displayed, and passed around until it was finally stored at the Université de Montréal for decades. It wasn't until 1989 that Edouard Bopre was properly laid to rest in his hometown. Though his life was short, his story remains one of the most dramatic and tragic examples of life as a real giant, celebrated for his strength but undone by his size. Don Kohler, 1925 to 1981. Don Kohler lived much of his life towering over the world, literally. Born in Montana in 1925, he developed normally through childhood, but after the age of 10, his body accelerated beyond anything expected. He was eventually diagnosed with acromegalic gigantism, a condition where the pituitary gland releases excess growth hormone even after puberty. At his peak, Kohler measured 8 feet 2 inches, 2.49 meters, making him the tallest living man from 1969 until he died in 1981. But perhaps the most surprising part of his story is his twin sister. While Don reached over 8 feet, his fraternal twin only stood 5 feet 9 inches, 1.74 meters. The contrast stunned doctors and clearly showed his condition wasn't genetic. A unique hormonal imbalance caused it. Despite his height, Kohler didn't join the circus or become a sideshow performer. Instead, he worked in sales for an industrial equipment company. He led a relatively low-key life, but one that grew increasingly challenging with age. Like many with gigantism, he developed kyphosis, a forward curve of the spine that affected his mobility and eventually his breathing. As he got older, he relied on a wheelchair and suffered from chronic back and heart issues. He passed away in 1981 at age 55 from complications linked to congestive heart failure. Don Kohler is remembered not just for his height, but for how he handled it, with humility, privacy, and quiet endurance. He may have stood tall, but he never let his condition define his dignity. Bernard Coyne, 1897 to 1921. Bernard Coyne, sometimes called the Iowa Giant, was one of the tallest men to have ever lived, though his true height may never be fully confirmed. Born in Anthon, Iowa in 1897, Coyne initially appeared to grow normally. However, by his teenage years, his growth had spiraled out of control. When he registered for the World War I draft in 1918, his height was recorded at exactly 8 feet, 2.44 meters, and he was still growing. Coyne had a rare condition called unicoidal infantile gigantism. This form of gigantism not only caused excessive height, but also delayed puberty and other physical developments. Medical experts at the time noted his growth didn't stop like most others. It kept pushing, possibly until the end of his life. While most records cite his final height at 8 feet 2 inches, 2.49 meters, there were rumors he might have reached 8 feet 4 inches, 2.54 meters, before his death. However, this figure lacks the solid verification of his draft records. Still, he stood among the tallest in history. Coyne's health, like many giants, was fragile. He suffered from glandular complications and liver issues, likely made worse by his size. He died in 1921 at the age of 23. His shoes, size 24, had to be custom-made, and his clothes were tailored by hand. Unlike showmen or circus giants, Coyne lived a quiet life. He didn't seek fame. His body, however, made him unforgettable, a gentleman overwhelmed by a body that never stopped growing. Xiang Jinlian, 1964 to 1982. Xiang Jinlian holds a unique place in history. She is the tallest woman ever officially measured. Born in 1964 in a rural village in Hunan Province, China, Xiang's growth was extraordinary from the very beginning. By just 4 months old, she was already noticeably larger than average. By the age of 4, she stood over 5 feet 9 inches tall, 1.76 meters. Her body didn't slow down. Instead, it continued to stretch upward at an alarming rate. At her peak, Xiang reached 8 feet 1.7 inches, 2.48 meters, making her taller than most men on this list. Her condition, like many others, was linked to a tumor on her pituitary gland, causing it to flood her body with growth hormone. But she also suffered from severe scoliosis, which bent her spine and made standing upright difficult. Doctors believed that if her spine had been straight, she might have been even taller. Her health was fragile. She battled diabetes and bone deformities throughout her short life. Despite her incredible size, Xiang was unable to live a normal childhood. She was largely confined to her home, too large and too sick to attend school or play outside. Her fame grew in China and around the world, but she never sought the spotlight. Xiang Jinlian passed away in 1982 at only 17 years old. Her height was officially recorded just months before her death. Her story is a heartbreaking reminder that behind medical records and world titles are real people, often suffering in silence under the weight of their bodies. Leonid Stadnik, 1970 to 2014. Leonid Stadnik was one of the tallest men ever reported, but unlike others on this list, he shied away from the spotlight. Born in 1970 in Ukraine, Stadnik's extraordinary growth began in his early teens after undergoing brain surgery. That operation may have accidentally affected his pituitary gland, triggering a massive surge in growth hormone. For years, reports suggested he stood over 8 feet 5 inches, 2.57 meters, possibly making him the tallest living person at the time. However, he refused to undergo official measurement under Guinness World Records updated standards, preferring to live privately. Without certified proof, his height remains a matter of debate, although his towering presence was well documented in photos and local reports. Stadnik worked as a veterinarian on a collective farm, but daily life became increasingly difficult. Clothing and shoes had to be specially made. He reportedly wore size 24.5 US footwear. Basic mobility was a struggle, and his height caused constant strain on his bones and organs. Unlike others who embraced fame or circus careers, Stadnik turned it down. He valued his peace, rarely giving interviews or leaving his village. His humility and quiet strength gained him respect in Ukraine and beyond. In 2014, Stadnik passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage at age 44. Despite never receiving an official title, his story left a lasting impression. He reminded the world that not all giants seek attention. Some simply want to live in peace, away from cameras and curiosity, even while carrying one of the rarest physical conditions known to science. Angus McKascal, 1825 to 1863. Angus McKascal wasn't just a giant, he was a legend. Born in 1825 on the Isle of Berneray in Scotland, he later moved with his family to Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia, Canada. Unlike most on this list, McKascal didn't suffer from a hormonal disorder. His height and strength were entirely natural, which made him all the more remarkable. Standing at 7 feet 9 inches, 2.36 meters, and weighing over 425 pounds, 193 kilograms, McKascal was proportionate and powerfully built. He wasn't just tall, he was strong. Stories say he could lift ship anchors weighing over 2,800 pounds, 1,270 kilograms, carry full barrels under each arm, and hoist adult men with ease. His feats earned him fame across North America, Cuba, and even Europe. He became a touring attraction, amazing audiences with his raw strength. Even Queen Victoria was impressed. He once performed for her and reportedly received an invitation to serve in her guard. Despite his fame, McKascal was known for his gentle nature and calm demeanor, earning him the nickname Giant McKascal. His death in 1863 at the age of 38 came as a sudden surprise. Some say it followed a major strength stunt that pushed his body too far. The cause was recorded as brain fever, likely meningitis or another infection. To this day, McKascal is celebrated in Nova Scotia folklore. He stands out in history not just for his height, but for how well he lived, healthy, strong, and respected. A true giant in every sense of the word. Yao Defen, 1972 to 2012. Yao Defen was once the tallest living woman in the world, holding the Guinness World Record before her passing.
Prepare to be enthralled by the tallest woman in China, which isn't a bad record to hold with a population of over 1.3 billion.
Born in 1972 in Anhui Province, China, she started growing unusually fast at a young age. By the age of 15, she was already over 6 feet 6 inches, 2 meters, tall. The cause? A tumor pressing on her pituitary gland, triggering uncontrolled hormone production and leading to gigantism. Yao eventually reached an official height of 7 feet 8.9 inches, 2.36 meters, making her one of the tallest women in history. But her incredible size came at a heavy cost. She suffered from multiple medical issues: heart disease, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, and malnutrition. Her bones were fragile, her energy limited, and her body always in pain. Growing up poor and illiterate, Yao was unable to attend school. She once dreamed of playing basketball, but her health made that impossible. For years, her family couldn't afford treatment. It wasn't until later in life that doctors were able to remove the tumor, stopping her growth, but not reversing the damage already done. Despite the hardships, Yao showed incredible strength. She lived with dignity, even when life was far from fair. Her story reached people around the world, not just because of her height, but because of her perseverance. Yao Defen passed away in 2012 at the age of 40. Her death was linked to complications from her condition, but her memory lives on as a symbol of courage, endurance, and the human spirit's ability to stand tall, even when the body is failing. Sandy Allen, 1955 to 2008. Sandy Allen was more than just the tallest woman in the world. She was a voice for others living with gigantism.
No living person is more recognized from the Guinness Book of Records than Sandy Allen of Indianapolis, Indiana.
Born in Chicago in 1955, Sandy began growing rapidly as a child. Doctors eventually discovered that a tumor on her pituitary gland was causing her body to flood with growth hormone. By adulthood, she reached a confirmed height of 7 feet 7.25 inches, 2.32 meters, making her the tallest living woman at the time. Unlike many others with her condition, Sandy actively sought help. In 1977, she had surgery to remove the tumor, which stopped her from growing any further. She also reached out to Guinness World Records, not for fame, but because she felt isolated. "I just want to meet someone like me," she wrote in her letter. That message brought her international attention and support. Sandy used her height as a platform. She appeared in documentaries, television shows, and even a film by Fellini. Her autobiography, Cast a Giant Shadow, told her story in her own words. Despite medical challenges that included mobility issues and frequent hospitalizations, she kept a positive spirit and lived independently for many years. Later in life, she moved to a retirement center in Shelbyville, Indiana, where she became a local treasure. She passed away in 2008 at the age of 53 from complications related to her condition. Sandy Allen didn't just grow tall, she stood tall. She used her rare life not just to endure, but to inspire others facing physical and emotional struggles of their own. Sun Ming, 1983 to present. Sun Ming is one of the tallest athletes to ever step onto a basketball court. Born in 1983 in Harbin, China, he stands at an incredible 7 feet 8.98 inches, 2.36 meters. His towering height was caused by a benign tumor on his pituitary gland, leading to acromegaly, an overproduction of growth hormone. His basketball dreams took him across the world. He trained in the United States, aiming for the NBA, but mobility and endurance challenges, common with gigantism, kept him out of the league. Still, he played professionally in the US or Mexico, Japan, and eventually found success in China. With the Beijing Ducks, he won 2 CBA championships and became a fan favorite. In 2005, Sun underwent surgery in Los Angeles to remove the tumor. It stopped further growth and likely saved his life. Off the court, Sun made headlines again, this time for love. He and his wife, Xu Yan, hold the Guinness World Record for the tallest living married couple. Now retired, Sun Ming remains a public figure. His story is about more than height. It's about persistence, discipline, and living big in every sense. From surgeries to slam dunks, he turned a rare condition into a towering achievement. Brahim Takiula, 1982 to present. From a small town in Morocco to life near Paris, Brahim Takiula's journey is one shaped by size and strength of spirit. Standing at 8 feet 1 inch, 2.46 meters, he's the second tallest living man in the world. But it's not just his height. His feet hold a world record too. His left foot measures 15.75 inches, 40.1 centimeters, requiring custom-made shoes sized 58 EU. His rapid growth didn't make sense at first. It wasn't until age 18 that a school doctor flagged it. The cause was acromegaly, a pituitary tumor flooding his body with growth hormone. In France, doctors removed part of the tumor and helped stop his growth. But life at that size still brings daily challenges. Cars, doorways, clothes, everything is a tight fit. Yet Brahim speaks about it all with honesty and even humor. He's open about the struggles, but never bitter. Now, based near Paris, he occasionally appears at public events, sharing his story to raise awareness about rare conditions like his. Through every obstacle, Brahim Takiula walks forward with quiet strength, dignity, and a presence that reaches far beyond his towering frame. Neil Fingleton, 1980 to 2017. Neil Fingleton stood at an astonishing height of 7 feet 7.56 inches, 2.33 meters, crowning him as the tallest man in Britain and one of the tallest in Europe. His remarkable stature wasn't purely genetic. While he wasn't officially diagnosed with pituitary gigantism, some traits of the condition likely played a role. Initially, Neil pursued a career in basketball, moving to the United States to attend the University of North Carolina, then transferring to Holy Cross, and later playing briefly in England, Spain, and Greece. Despite his towering height, he faced challenges with speed and agility, which limited his professional prospects in the sport. Transitioning to acting, Neil harnessed his height as an advantage. He became known for roles that showcased his size, notably as Mag the Mighty in Game of Thrones. Additionally, he appeared in X-Men First Class, 47 Ronin, and Jupiter Ascending, often portraying larger-than-life characters through motion capture or costumes. Neil's screen presence was captivating. He was not only tall but also exceptionally talented. Tragically, he passed away in 2017 at the young age of 36 from heart failure. His legacy endures as both Britain's tallest man and a memorable figure in sports and film. Giants have walked among us, not just in myth, but in reality. From quiet painters in goat-drawn carts to circus strongmen, athletes, and screen legends, these individuals led lives that were both extraordinary and challenging. Behind every record-breaking height lies a human story of pain, power, and perseverance. Some embraced fame. Others hid from it. Many battled daily challenges that most of us will never understand, from finding shoes to simply walking through a doorway. But all of them, in one way or another, stood tall. Their stories remind us that true greatness isn't just about size, it's about how you carry it. Science may explain their conditions, but only storytelling captures their spirit. They were marvels of biology, yes, but also remarkable for their resilience, humor, and humanity. In a world built for the average, they were anything but. And though some have passed, their towering legacies still cast long shadows across time.